Hello, everybody. My name is Kylie Barton, and I'm going to be talking about the Annie Dookhan trial and how the ISO IEC 17025 accreditation standards from today would have been broken at the time of her trial. So, what are the accreditation standards? They are a set of standards that enable laboratories to demonstrate that they operate competently and generate valid results, which in turn promotes confidence in their work. This is important because it helps facilitate cooperation between laboratories and other bodies by generating wider acceptance of results nationwide and even worldwide. Next, I want to talk about who is Annie Dookhan. She was a chemist and a drug analyst that worked at Hinton Laboratory of Massachusetts. She later went on trial for dry labbing, which is when somebody doesn't actually test the items but issues a result anyway. She was also found guilty of contaminating evidence in order to produce a desired result. As well, she lied to her employers about her educational background and the experience that she had. As a result of her actions, many people were wrongly convicted, and some served time in prison for crimes that they did not actually commit. The first accreditation standard in non-compliance that I wanted to talk about was impartiality. This is talked about in clause 4, and the exact wording is the laboratory shall be responsible for impartiality of its laboratory activities and shall not allow commercial, financial, or other pressures to compromise impartiality. Dookhan repeatedly broke the rules of the lab and as an analyst by continuously altering and misrepresenting test results. She undermined the integrity of the criminal justice system and violated the ethical standards expected of professionals in her position. Her actions were anything but impartial and were a blatant betrayal of trust placed in her by the legal system. The next standard I wanted to talk about were the structural requirements, which are talked about in clause 5.6. The exact wording states the laboratory shall have personnel who, irrespective of other responsibilities, have the authority and resources to carry out their duties. Dookhan lied repeatedly about her educational background and qualifications, even stating that she had a master's degree in chemistry from the University of Massachusetts, which she in fact did not. The Hinton Laboratory did not adhere to the personnel qualification standards, and if they did a simple background check, they would have realized that she had lied about her background and experience. Moving on to the next one, I wanted to talk about facilities and environmental conditions, which is talked about in clause 6.3.1, which states the facilities and environmental conditions shall be suitable for the laboratory activities and shall not adversely affect the validity of results. In her time, in the 9 years that she worked at this laboratory, she was often referred to as a superhero in the workplace because she had astronomical amounts of tests released on a daily basis. It was said that she did on average 3 times more a year than any other chemist on site, which just kind of shows how unrealistic the terms were and what was capable of being done in a day's work. If her supervisors would have checked on her work more thoroughly, they would have realized that what was capable in the working environment and what wasn't. And then maybe this wouldn't have gone on for so long. The next test I want to talk about is handling of test or calibration items, which is talked about in clause 7.4, which states the laboratory shall have a procedure for the transportation, receipt, handling, protection, storage, retention, and disposal or return of test or calibration items. Supervisors found that Dookhan had violated the chain of custody program protocols on at least 90 samples. However, she did touch thousands upon thousands of samples, so this number could be even more than what the 90 samples are showing, and then tried to cover up the violation by forging a coworker's initials on the documents. The next clause I want to talk about is clause 7.5.2, which states the laboratory shall ensure that amendments to technical records can be tracked to previous versions or to original observations. Both the original and amended data and file shall be retained, including the date of alteration, an indication of the altered aspect, and the personnel responsible for the alterations. The laboratory was unable to put forward comprehensive, reliable documentation on all data related to the forensic testing procedures, as there was a dumping schedule for all evidence. This obviously has changed since then, but this highlights a huge red flag in adherence to technical record standards. Even if they were able to go back and check the evidence, they wouldn't be able to retest it, as Dookhan had admittedly contaminated many cases, so none of the results would be reliable at this point. The next standard I wanted to talk about was clause 8.7.1, which talks about a nonconformity, and when this occurs, the laboratory shall react to the nonconformity and, as applicable, take action to control or correct it and address the consequences. There were many documented reports from fellow employees of Dookhan's about her misdealings with testing and results reporting that went unanswered. If management would have taken the appropriate steps to correct her behavior, they could have stopped thousands of tests from being corrupted. And the last one I wanted to talk about was clause 8.1.1, which states the laboratory shall establish, document, implement, and maintain a management system that is capable of supporting and demonstrating the consistent achievement of this document. So Dookhan's management system failed her and essentially the rest of their employees. Obviously, their own actions are their own to make, and management had nothing to do with this. However, by failing to uphold standards in their lab and comprehensively laying out the expectations of the workers, they were essentially set up for failure. If the management system had a strong support system and backbone, none of these things discussed in the Annie Dookhan trial would have happened. In conclusion, this was an incredible teaching moment for the forensic science community as to how they could be better, and basically highlighted everything that was weak within their system, and thus brought forth was the ISL IEC 17025 accreditation standards that we know today.